ladies, welcome back to my channel. Really excited to talk about this topic today. We are talking all about how to stop mothering your man. I am the go-to person to listen to because I have been probably mothering my men since I ever started dating at probably 16. And this is exactly the type of video that I would have loved when I first entered the dating world, because I had no clue the difference between mothering a man and nurturing him and how it actually impacts the relationship negatively rather than positively, because in your head you think you're doing all this because you love him and you care for him, but in actuality it's doing more harm than good. To start off, let's talk about what mothering your man is versus nurturing him. So when you mother him, you're kind of coddling your man, you're constantly trying to almost teach him. Think of it as you are actually the mother and the child. You're constantly trying to show your man how to do things. You want him to do things in a certain way. You're basically guiding him in the relationship and in life, and you are usually in your masculine energy. I mean, mothering and motherhood, of course, has both feminine and masculine traits. You know, you have your feminine where you do nurture and you take care of and you love your child. You know, you exhibit all the behaviors of allowing your child to flow freely in the world. But also on top of that, it's kind of 50-50, and in polarity there is no 50-50. The other half of mothering is the masculine. It's the doing, it's the teaching, it's the discipline. And in an actual relationship, you don't want a 50-50 split of your masculine and feminine. You need one that's more dominating over the other. Being in your feminine energy and actually nurturing your man, you see him as an equal, or he sees you guys as an equal, whichever way. Because you can be mothering and you can say, oh yeah, he's my equal, like, you know, we cater to each other in like the same way. Mothering is all about control. They're kind of interchangeable. Control in a relationship is reminding him or asking consistently if he got his hair cut. When is he gonna get his hair cut? I am super guilty of this one, is always critiquing the things that he does and how he does them. If he's not doing it in your way and it's automatically the wrong way, and you go and you teach him how to do it your exact way, even though the task is still getting done. Although there is a way to be in a relationship and teach each other how to do different things, because we all talk about, you know, what's it called? I forget what the term is called when you see like people on TikTok posting that they ask their man to put something in the fridge, and instead of putting it in a container, they just put the pot in there. I think it's like something incompetence. Like that's a totally different story from you know, consistently telling your man how to do something and he does it not the right way on purpose, versus like you're making him do something even though the task is still getting done correctly. You need to show him how to do it in your way, and you're constantly nitpicking and critiquing him. You take away his own independence and his own personhood, which no person ever wants to feel that way. But the reason you're watching this video is because that you notice these patterns and you notice that it's actually impacting your relationship in a negative way, and you're on the first step to actually letting go of this mothering behavior, and you want to allow yourself to rest in your feminine energy and him in his masculine. The first question is, why do we feel the need to be in control, and why do we want to mother our men? Like, where does this come from? And a lot of times you just think, oh, it's because, you know, as women, like, we nurture and we want to take care of, but there can be a way deeper meaning behind that. And usually mothering and controlling stems from childhood trauma or how you were raised. And again, if he's an incapable type of man and an actual man-child, then that is a totally separate video of men and their feminine, and that is not who we're talking about. Growing up in today's society, as women, you're strongly encouraged to be independent and to ensure that we are not relying on anyone for anything. And while this is like a really good motivational thing, it's a good tool to ensure that women have the correct education, they understand financial literacy, and they are able to live on their own without the help of someone else. It has also taught us that getting help from someone else is wrong and relying on someone else is wrong, when in fact that idea in and of itself is incorrect. Because as human beings, we rely on having a social circle and a community and a village. That is how we evolved. So the hyper independence and this push in not allowing our man to cater to us has caused a really big divide in relationships, and it's caused women to begin mothering and men to become the sassy man type of apocalypse and men to not care as much. So how we take this mothering and controlling aspect from childhood is usually because we did not have a strong feminine influence growing up. It doesn't matter who it was, but we lacked that. And a lot of people lack that because for a majority of us, our parents were always in survival mode. And when you have a parent in survival mode, whether it be a single parent or both parents, and they're just trying to make sure that you're taken care of and that all of you survive, there isn't much room to embrace rest, to embrace being in your body. You're always in your head, and that's the thing. Feminine energy is your body. It's free flowing, it's play. And when you're in survival mode, there's no room for play. You're always working. You have to make sure that all your ducks in a row and that you have your head on straight. And that goes to show how, as women, we always look for safety. And survival mode, masculine energy, that gives us our own safety. So when you're mothering your man, it's a way for you to feel safe in the relationship, to know that you are doing what you need to do. And instead of relying on your man for safety, because we've been taught you can't rely on someone else, you start to garner your own safety in through yourself by constantly nitpicking and nagging and telling him how things should be done and making sure you have control of whatever he's doing and what you're doing, because that's how you grew up and that's totally not your fault. And that's because when we're raised in such a survival mode masculine state with no feminine energy flow or play, and no one to tell us that it's okay to rest, it's okay to take your time, and it's okay if you don't have everything together, and it's okay to rely on other people, feminine energy becomes foreign to you. And soon, without feminine energy and all your mothering, it's going to bleed not only into your friendships and family, but that's how it'll bleed into relationships with your man. So here I have a list of common signs that you are mothering him. And if you exude probably more than one of these, I say if you just have one, then that's okay. You might have like a type A personality, that just might be something that you have trouble letting go of, but I do encourage you to fix. But if you have 2 or more of these, then you probably are mothering your man. So if you catch yourself consistently using definitive words, saying you always do this, you never can do this for me, that's a huge one for guys. You never want to use definitive words for anything, and you always want to stick to I statements. If you are mothering, you usually say you, like how I am right now, I'm teaching you, I'm disciplining you. You use a lot of you statements instead of I statements. Another example is if you're controlling every outing or day when you guys travel, if you have to be the one to control every single thing, you need to plan everything to a T. This used to be me a lot, and I used to be so controlling and smothering and mothering for dates that I went, honestly, a majority of my dating life never having a man plan a date for me. And there'd be times where I'm like, why don't men plan dates? Why don't men plan dates? And it was because I was attracting the wrong types of men. I was attracting very feminine men. But in the same vein, when I would get into relationships, I would have to have control of everything. And it was also a result of me having anxiety. And with my anxiety, I felt the need to control everything because I didn't want to become anxious and I didn't want to overthink. If you find yourself always critiquing him, like I said before, if you find yourself critiquing different tasks, critiquing how he handles finances, critiquing how he interacts with friends or family, that's a big one. This one's huge. If you constantly find yourself guiding him in his own life or on his own path. If you're sitting there trying to find a job for your man, if he doesn't know what he wants to do, if you're consistently maybe sending him jobs or, asking to see his resume, things like that. I just had a conversation with one of my friends about how there was a time where we both have tried finding jobs for our men and looking at their resumes and helping them out. And it's like, that is a huge mothering type of behavior. And a man who asks you to do those things is more of a feminine man and they're wounded. Or if you kind of push yourself, there's a difference there. If you're pushing to cater to your man in a way where you're constantly saying, oh, what about this one? Look at this one, look at this, look at that, do this, then it's gonna come off as nagging. Another example is you're too overprotective or jealous, which sometimes I kind of feel like I'm still in this realm where it's not that I get jealous, I just, my man is mine. And I kind of get into that headspace where if I feel like we're eating somewhere or we're ordering food and maybe there's a woman that just seems a little bit too friendly. Sometimes if that is a consistent behavior for me, it's playful, I'll laugh it off or we'll talk about it. I'll be like, ugh, whatever, that was weird. But if you are overprotective and jealous in a way where you start to internalize it and you overthink and you're constantly projecting that onto your man because of your own insecurities, then that is also a way of mothering him and controlling him. The next one is you constantly nag or nitpick instead of having healthy communication. Here's a good example. Let's say you're doing the dishes and you're like, ugh, like I really wish I could just sit and rest already. Like those kinds of comments, after a while, they can start to build up because you can feel yourself building up in that anger or that resentment or that frustration, and you're projecting that onto your man. And if you're saying it loud enough so he can hear you, and it's more of a passive aggressive comment because you want him to offer help or you want him to try and sympathize with you, then that comes off more as like mothering and controlling. That's like when we were younger and our moms would say stuff like that, like, oh, look at all these dishes, I wonder where all these dishes come from, like these dishes are so piled up, I wonder who did it. Like those types of comments come off as very mothering, and instead you need to learn how to healthily communicate your needs. That also goes into you are constantly giving instead of allowing yourself to receive. If you catch yourself constantly giving to your partner over and over, whether it be physical things, whether it be help, whatever it may be, and you're not allowing them to give back to you, or it's at an imbalance, then you're gonna come off as mothering him, especially if you're constantly trying to one up your man. I've said this in past videos. I don't know if it was my most recent upload, but I was talking about how if you constantly feel the need to one up your man in giving him things, it's going to take away from his masculine energy, and because you're putting yourselves in a competitive state. This very last one usually is a sign that mothering has gone on for quite a while, and it comes with if you are constantly doing the domestic labor and you either need to always ask for help, or he never wants to help, or he never bothers asking and you're kind of waiting for him to ask. If you catch yourself constantly having to do everything, it's because you probably have put your man in a position where he feels inadequate and he's not able to do things how you like it. So eventually, and this goes for everyone, eventually when someone makes you feel like you are not doing good enough, you're not going to try or you're not going to ask because you feel like you're either going to do it wrong or the answer will be no. And that last one is really, really, really big. That usually comes from a lot of mothering. Next, we're going to talk about how mothering negatively affects your relationship, and my first tip is that it destroys and it removes the polarity. So like I said before, in relationships there's polarity, there's masculine and there's feminine. Regardless of who has who, anyone can have it, but you always have to have one that's more dominant than the other. If you are a feminine woman who wants to be with a masculine man, you keep those roles. But the issue is when you are a masculine woman and you're constantly mothering, you're going to force your partner into the feminine, and that's going to affect the polarity. And you have to remember, if you have two people that are both 50% masculine, 50% feminine, and you have two of them, you would think, oh, it balances out, but instead you're going to consistently kind of argue, or you're not going to know who should manage what, and one person may do one thing, another person may do another, one person may be in their masculine and another is also in their masculine, and you may butt heads more, and that's why you also can't have two feminine and two masculine. When you have two partners in their masculine, there's no room for play. But if you have two partners in their feminine, nothing gets done. Remember, your masculine is about safety. It's about discipline. It's about teaching. If you have two people constantly trying to teach each other, there's no fun in that. And that is a total turnoff. But then if you have two people in their feminine who are constantly kind of just flowing, not doing anything, lazing about, thinking about more of themselves and how to take care of themselves, then you're not going to really have a fulfilling relationship where you both grow. And remember that mothering is living in your masculine energy and nurturing is living in your feminine energy. So when you're constantly mothering your man, you're sacrificing all of your feminine energy and you're basically allowing him to be in his feminine because you are consistently leading, guiding, and teaching, and you are basically all your feminine energy has run dry and he's the one that is forced into the feminine. The next one is when you're constantly mothering your man, it ruins the intimacy a lot. And the best way to put it is no one is attracted to their mother and no mother is attracted to their child. So when you're always mothering your man, how do you expect him to really crave that intimacy and that passion when now he's going to see you as this disciplinary figure? He's going to see you as a teacher. He's going to see you as a mother. a mother that is going to tell him what to do or how to do it, and that's not a big turn on for him. And then for you, the one who's mothering, you have a man that basically has been forced to submit a little bit and always listen to you, and you make all the rules that he's not going to really know how to advance toward you or court you. And he may not even try because he feels like even if he does, he might do it wrong. And then it's another lesson for him to learn that you're going to teach him. Mothering also ruins your man's self-esteem a lot. And I learned this the hard way because I would date very wounded men and I would mother them, and it would work for like a little bit, but then eventually constantly mothering your man, it starts to hinder at their self-worth. Your man can start to question if he can actively lead and provide in this relationship. He sees you leading and providing and doing all these things and how he's doing them all wrong, so he's gonna wonder, like, am I capable of doing this? Like, you know, is this a relationship I should be in? Should I even be in a relationship? And a lot of the times, it's happened a few times for me, the man wound up leaving. And a man will usually leave if you are making him feel inadequate. And that doesn't mean that, oh, it's his problem, like he needs to be more secure in himself and he needs to work on self-esteem. That's not true. A lot of men have high self-esteem and they carry themselves in a high regard, but if you come down and you're nagging and nitpicking and mothering him, saying that everything he does is wrong, that can ruin anyone's self-esteem. That can either cause him to put himself into the feminine role or he will leave because he feels like that he is not needed. If you spend all your time mothering, you are going to be exhausted and burnt out because mothering comes from the masculine, which is the head space. And you have to remember, and I say this in so many videos, you have to remember that if you are constantly in your masculine, in your headspace, you are going to always be tired, and it's going to be harder for you to actually be in your body and want to do the work to rest because you are so wired and programmed to mother and to be in your masculine. What this can do is if you are burnt out from mothering your man, when it comes to actual intimacy and, you know, laying in bed together and things like that, you're not going to have the energy anymore to pursue him or allow him to pursue you. You're not going to want to go out and have great date nights. You're not going to want to, you know, try and explore new things because you're so tired all the time. And lastly, another way that mothering affects your relationship is you are prioritizing someone else over yourself. Of course, you're allowed to put energy into your relationship and into your man, but there's a point where if all your energy goes into that, it's going to consume you and consume who you are. If you allow one person and your relationship to become your entire world and you invest all your energy into it, what's going to happen is you are going to rely on it to give you value and to give you happiness, instead of your value and happiness coming from who you are and from the inside. And oftentimes when you start to feel like your relationship is all you have and you lose your slight sense of independence, that's where you can get depressed, you can get more anxiety. It's also where you suffer from not having enough happiness in your life. You'll also suffer from a lot of insecurity, and you'll have issues with your self-worth because you think all your worth comes from how you shaped this one man, instead of your worth and security in yourself coming from what you've done for you. Instead of putting all your energy into just your man, you have to ensure that you are doing things for yourself. So we discussed the signs of mothering, how it affects your relationship. So now how do we fix it? How can you stop mothering your man? And this is actually the best part, but it can be so hard for us because we're stuck in this masculine mode. You ladies need to remember that less is more. And that is the best part of feminine energy. It's play, it's flowing, it's resting, it's being in your body, and it's allowing someone else to kind of take the reins on things at times. Being in your feminine energy, you have to be okay with not knowing everything. You have to be okay with not everything going your way or things not going as planned. You kind of have to say to yourself, okay, this was a lesson, or maybe we weren't meant to do this. Something saved us, whatever it may be, the universe, God, Allah, whatever you believe in. You need to be okay with that not everything is going to go as planned. And I had suffered from huge anxiety growing up, mostly in college. I always was a bit anxious, but in college it got pretty bad. When one thing went wrong or when one thing didn't go the way I had planned, I would break down, I wouldn't know what to do, I'd be so lost because I was so hyper-focused on having control. But that's the best part of feminine energy, is that if you rest in your feminine and you have your man and you actually allow him to take control and you allow him to lead, instead of you having to put all the pieces together again, he's gonna feel like he did something and he's gonna feel accomplished and that he can figure things out on his own. Because when he does that, you'll be happy. And that goes into my next tip is you need to let your man take control, whether it be finances, whether it be a house, whether it be a child, whatever it is. Allow your man to have control over something. That actually goes into my next tip, which is allowing your man to take control, allowing him to lead in the relationship. Because what happens when your man takes control and he leads, whether it be out on a date, whether it's, apartment hunting, whether it's anything, a vacation, when he sees all the fruits of his labor, everything that he did to provide for you and do something for you, and he sees the happiness it brings you, that is what fuels your man. And that's what a lot of people tend to forget is our man, if he's a healthy masculine man, just wants to provide for us and see us happy. But again, like I said before, if you're the one always leading and you're the one always taking control of the dates and the vacations and the houses, everything, he's gonna feel like he has no place in your life. He's gonna feel like, okay, what do I do? Just bring in the money, if that's what he does. Or who knows, what if you bring in more money? Your man's gonna feel like he doesn't really have a place in the relationship with you. So it's important that you allow him to lead. Your man wants to take care of you. Don't sit and think that if you don't do things, they won't get done, or it'll be a burden to him, or you're bothering him. That's not true at all. If you have a man that truly loves you and he's a healthy masculine man, he's gonna wanna do whatever he can to make your life easier. Next is to immerse yourself in self-care and your hobbies, because those are things that'll help you grow and they'll fuel you as a woman, as an individual. You're not just finding fulfillment in your relationship and what you do for your man, but what you do for yourself and how you can take care of yourself and grow right next to him, in front of him. And a lot of people say, oh, the man has to lead, like all these things, a woman has to submit and such, but women have their own way of leading, and that is taking care of ourselves and constantly leveling up. Because when our man sees that we've leveled up, he's gonna see, okay, like, you're gonna influence him and you're gonna kind of put that drive in him to also follow your lead and level up. Next, you also have to practice inner work and be able to self-reflect and ask yourself, where did these mothering tendencies come from? Did it come from childhood trauma? Did it come from seeing maybe your mom that was a bit more of the masculine and your dad was also masculine? There was no feminine around you. Maybe you only had a single parent in survival mode. Sit down with yourself and really think of, okay, where did I learn this from? For me, I know I learned it from my mom. I'm very fortunate my mom and dad are still together, but my mom was she was really the primary caretaker. Of course, I wasn't there when my parents first started dating, but you could clearly see that my mom was the one that always needed to do everything. She kind of is like, oh, your father won't know how to do that, or he's not comfortable with that, and she makes these assumptions at times. But that's how they work. That's how my parents work. They're still in love. They still, take care of one another. I learned that that is not how my marriage is going to go. That's not how my relationship works, because I saw the effects of me with the mothering, controlling behavior and how it affected my husband, and we had to have a discussion on it. And I was like, okay, like this obviously is not working for me. I'm with a different type of man. My man is not my dad. I am not my mom, and I had to kind of unlearn those things, and that's where I started understanding feminine energy. And lastly, my best tip is try to be very conscious and log through the day when you feel that mothering behavior come out. When your man says like, oh, I folded the towels and it's not in the way that you like, you don't need to be like, oh, let me show you how to actually do it, or say, this is wrong, you never do it right. Just pause and take a breath for a second and be like, thank you, honey. Because they're towels, they're probably in a linen closet, and you're gonna use them to stop something up or use them on your body, and they're gonna be unfolded anyways. Give yourself some grace, and as you go through each day, even if it's just for a week, think of every time that you're about to, have a teaching moment or discipline your man, or kind of ask him, when are you getting a haircut? When are you gonna send me this? When are you gonna look at this? I told you to do this, why haven't you done it yet? Just wait it out a week and see, a week later, did he do that thing? Did he come to me about it? Because you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised that like even me, sometimes I'm like, oh wow, babe, I'm surprised you remember that. Like, because I don't remind my man of things. I usually give him time because he's busy, he works. I'll give him time to do what I ask or look at something that I sent him, and he eventually does it. It doesn't take him a week. You can give your man time and let him be his own person and let him have his own independence instead of constantly nagging and nitpicking him. And of course, doing this and giving yourself that moment to avoid that mothering or that controlling behavior, it's going to be uncomfortable. And sometimes you're going to have to give yourself a second before knowing what to do. But you have to remember, there is no change without discomfort. That's how change comes. Like, you know, when you work out, you have to keep working out and you're going to be uncomfortable. Your muscles are going to hurt more. Your brain is a muscle. That's exactly what you're doing. You're training your brain to ensure that you are no longer mothering and controlling. And it's not, again, I want to reiterate, it's not your fault that that is something that happened to you. You know, you were put in survival mode. You were raised around that, and that's totally fine. Something in your life told you that this was the only way to have a successful relationship or the only way to survive. And you are going to put in the work to ensure that you can stop whatever mothering or controlling behavior that you're about to exude, and ensure that your man can see that difference in you. Because it happened to me. I remember being with my man. He even noticed, he was like, yeah, you're a lot less anxious and you're a lot more relaxed. Because I used to need to know everything. I didn't like surprises. I was like, I need to control everything. And of course that would affect him, because that nervous, anxious energy rubs off on the people around you. And he noticed that shift in me. It's been such a positive effect on our relationship when I let go of the need to control and I allowed things to just be. And I would accept things for what they are, and I would allow him to lead. Okay, ladies, that is the end of our video today. I'm so happy you guys joined me, and I really hope this helps you ladies out there, and I'll see you next week for a new one. Bye.